Hey everybody, this is Sam from Sounds Like Sam. Thanks for tuning in. Today I just wanted to go over some of my favorite wide receivers to target a little bit later in your fantasy football drafts. Doesn't really matter if it's standard or PPR. I like all these guys just the same. So I'll start off with my first quote unquote sleeper. It's hard to say that he's a sleeper because he's already going so high in a lot of drafts. But this is a guy that I think that could 100% be the wide receiver one this year. He was a rookie last year, kind of played for an offense that was struggling a little bit, but ended up being their go-to guy and go-to weapon. I like that he's quarterback proof. It doesn't really matter who's throwing to him. They can get him the ball and he can score and he can get you a lot of points. The guy I'm talking about is Brian Thomas Jr. I truly feel like, given what he did last season, going 87 receptions, 1,282 yards, receiving 10 touchdowns on 133 targets, he definitely is more of like a 50-50 ball guy, I'd say, but his catch percentage was better than 50-50. It was more like 65, I'd say. I don't know. I don't have the stat in front of me, but I love that this guy's got big touchdown ability. Last season, Trevor Lawrence was injured probably more than half the season, so they went with a couple different guys. I know Mac Jones really liked throwing to him. I think there was another quarterback too that he was going to consistently, but as a rookie, the only guy who kind of outshined him was Malik Neighbors, and that was in receptions, and I believe that was it. Like, that was the only thing that he did. And Malik had 40 more targets than he did. He caught 29 more balls, and he had three more touchdowns than Malik. So I think the projection that the ESPN has for Brian is like really low. And this is a guy who, for a second round pick, I think he could easily be a wide receiver one. So I really like him. The fact that he was quarterback proof last year, and he was a rookie, I think stands out a lot. And to me, that it's he's definitely a super appealing wide receiver for that round that I like basically above everybody else that's going in the second round and some in the third, some in the first. So I think he's a pretty easy pick for me. Other guys I wanted to talk about were Rashee Rice. Currently, he's going as the wide receiver 22. Over 3 games last year, he had 29 targets, where he was averaging 9.3 targets a game, 8 receptions a game, and 288 yards. With two of the games he played, he had over 100 yards. So if he would have played the entire year, all 17 games, he was likely on pace for 158 targets, 136 receptions, 1,632 yards, 5 touchdowns for the season, which would have made him the wide receiver 2 last year. And this is a guy that you can get definitely in the third, maybe in the fourth. The only problem with him is he's got like a lot of competition at wide receiver. They got Xavier Worthy still. They still have Travis Kelce. They have, I think they might even still have Juju Smith-Schuster. And they also have Hollywood Brown as well. And not to mention like Noah Gray and Isaiah Pacheco from the backfield. So they've got a lot of mouths to feed. But to be honest, like the way that the chemistry that he had with Mahomes, I felt like it was kind of like a new generation that he was going to be the next man up. And yeah, I do like that Xavier Worthy has the speed. He's kind of more like a Tyreek Hill type of guy, but he had the feeling of like a top three wide receiver if he's healthy. So if you're willing to take a risk and take him, I really like Rashee Rice this year, and I think he'd be a pretty spectacular, uh, probably like third or fourth round pick. But yeah, I really like him moving on this year. The third guy I want to talk about is Devonta Smith. Now, this is a guy who last year in the Super Bowl, he kind of was a spark for the Eagles. He didn't have like an awesome season. He only had 833 yards. He did have 8 touchdowns and he had 68 receptions, but I did feel like he was moving in the right direction. He did miss 5 games and he totaled points 200 fantasy points for those games that he played. So with the ending part of the season, he went 13 points, 29 points, 11 points, 31 points. And he's definitely capable of having over 100 yards in a game. I think he could be a little bit more in the rotation this year. And I feel like he's starting to pick up the pace for the team and becoming a reliable weapon for them as a wide receiver too. So I kind of like him as a flex player, wide receiver too, if you can get him a little bit later. But I think he's a guy who's really a really solid pick among those players in that group. The other guy I kind of like around there is Jerry Jeudy. I feel like nobody's really talking about him. He's had issues in the past, just not being able to. I don't know. He just hasn't really broken out before this past season, and I feel like on the Browns, it was like the perfect spot for him. He really got his groove going. He was a really targeted guy at the second half of the season. So week 9 through 18, he was really killing it for the Browns. He had at least 3 games over 100 yards, 1 game over 200 yards. He's not a super touchdown heavy guy, but I'm hoping that because their offense looks like it's going to be a little bit better this year with Joe Flacco being hopefully healthy for a little bit longer and getting more chemistry with him. I think that's really going to help Jerry Jeudy a lot, and hopefully he can find the end zone a little bit more. But reception wise, he's averaging about 6 or 7 a game, and with some games even totaling 11 and 12 from last year. I kind of see a similar thing happening this year. I know they still have a couple guys, including like some rookies. I know they just got Isaiah Bond. They had Deontay Johnson. I think there's another guy they have too. I want to say his name is. To be honest, I don't even know what his name is. He's not even in the top of their list, so I'm honestly not that worried about it. But besides Jerry Jeudy, I mean David Njoku has been kind of a beast the last 2 years when he's healthy. So that's like the only kind of target guy that I like receiving wise for the Browns. But I think either him or Njoku are really good picks for fantasy this year because they're just going to keep having to try to keep up with these other teams, especially like the Bengals who have a great offense, Ravens, obviously a fantastic offense, and then I feel like the Steelers could also be a pretty I don't know pass. I don't want to say pass heavy, but I think they could score some points this year too. So in order to keep up with that demand, I think it's going to rely heavily on Jerry this season. Other guys I wanted to talk about were Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs. I kind of feel like they're very similar in similar situations. I like both of them. I think last season Cooper Kupp just had like a random decline in production that made absolutely no sense. He wasn't injured or anything at the end of the season. Matthew Stafford just liked going to Puka more, which is understandable because he's a great receiver, but it made absolutely no sense because he was killing the beginning part of the year, and then they just kind of stopped going to him. So I don't know if it was like an internal thing or if there was something actually like physically wrong with Cooper Kupp, but I feel like in this new Seattle offense, there's an opportunity for him to come in there, take over DK Metcalf's role, and become a go-to guy for Sam Darnold or Jalen Mill, whoever's at the quarterback position. I feel like he could be a huge veteran presence for them and is a guy in the 6th round who could. I mean, he was the wide receiver one back in 2021, I believe. So he has the potential. It's just a matter of injury and whether or not they look for him. But I think they will. And I like Cooper Kupp as a pick. Stephon Diggs, feel like he's kind of similar. I don't think he's not going to get as many touchdowns I think as Cooper Kupp will, but I really like him with the Patriots. It's a really revamped offense, and I like Drake May. I think he has potential to have a breakout season. It's just a matter of if Diggs can stay healthy, and I'm hoping that's a yes. Let's see what he was doing last year. So let's see. About half the season, he had 47 receptions, 496 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then a rushing touchdown. He missed the second half of the season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's 1,000 yard receiver, 6 touchdowns for a 6th round pick to get a guy who's potentially like a 90 yard reception type of guy. is pretty big, and I think that they are going to use him. So I really like that pick. He just has to stay healthy. The other guys I wanted to quickly share on were Jordan Addison, Rashid Shaheed, Emeka Egbuka, Adam Thielen, and Marvin Mims. Jordan Addison, I really like. He's just, I mean, he has the suspension for the first 3 games, but he is a touchdown machine for the Vikings. And for a second half guy, he could make or break your season. So I really like him as a later round pick. I think he's an obvious flex position once he's back in, if not a wide receiver too. This is his 3rd year. He just has to keep going with the pace that he's been going with and not get injured. But I really like him as a pick. I like the fact that they look at him as the wide receiver 2 to Justin Jefferson. And I think being behind Justin Jefferson opens a lot of doors for him because defense is already double teaming JJ. So as long as JJ McCarthy works out at quarterback, I think Jordan will work out as wide receiver in fantasy. Rashid Shaheed I like because even though he didn't do much last year with his injury, the Saints honestly don't have anything going for them, and he seemed to be like the only spark for them last season. So I think they're definitely going to throw to him, and he's a late round flyer that can easily see some good fantasy points. Just from the games he played last year, he doesn't get a ton of receptions, but he's averaging about 85 yards, if not more, a game. So he's pretty an easy 10-point player, a really decent flex if he's healthy. And I think a guy that the Saints will look heavily to this season. So I really like him as a late round pick. So hopefully he can play the whole season. The other guy that I like is Emeka Egbuka. Emeka's a rookie on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The way that Baker was playing and cooking last year with the Buccaneers, I feel like he really felt his stride going. He connected with all the wide receivers. This is a guy who he played with that phenom Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. He was kind of second hand looked at. I don't know how to describe it, but with Chris Godwin down for the first couple weeks, I feel like he is a great fantasy play this season, especially going a little bit late. You can even draft both Chris Godwin and then target Emeka Egbuka the next round. I think you could just swap them out because I think they're both going to be really good picks. And he's definitely a guy who I could see having a great second half of the season just because I feel like, at least in this case, I mean, rookies tend to start off a little bit slow, but I think Ohio State tends to turn out good products. So I would not be surprised if he goes the whole season as like the next rookie phenom wide receiver. So I do like him this season as well. And then Adam Thielen, I feel like is always underrated. I think he's the go-to guy for the Panthers. I know they got a lot of other guys going for them, like Tyro McMillan, the first round draft pick from Arizona this past year. But I like Adam Thielen. He's been reliable for them, and he's also just a solid flex play for a late round pick that people are just underdogging him. So I like him. And then my last guy I wanted to talk about is Marvin Mims for the Denver Broncos. I feel like the end of the last season, he really connected well with Bo Nix. I feel like the Broncos are going to have a breakout season with everybody they have going on. He didn't produce that many receptions, but he just kind of broke out the second half of the season, where in his last 5 games, he had 2 for over 100 yards and finished those last 5 games to totaling 5 touchdowns as well, with 2 touchdowns each in the last 2 games. Now it is the end of the season and they didn't really have anything going for them, but like numbers wise, he's a great sleeper. And if their offense is starting to cook, I really like him as a late round draft pick for you. Those are all the wide receivers I wanted to talk about today. I hope you got something from this. If not, too bad. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. And yeah.